Hey, growers of the world, Jordan River with another episode of Growcast, another appearance of Dr. Coco. We got some great info from Dr. Coco, a little bit of Dr. Corncob. We talk about genetics. We talk about trends in the growing world. We talk about lights and everything growing. I know you'll enjoy today's episode. Before we get to the good doctor himself, I must give some love to Remo Nutrients, REMO Nutrients.com. Find them in your local hydro store out of British Columbia, Canada. Pharmaceutical grade nutrients. Consistent quality, and that's because Urban Remo, the guy who runs it, he has a passion for happy, healthy plants. Find him at Urban Remo on Instagram and YouTube. Give him a follow for Growcast. As I said, check out Remo in your local hydro store. And we've got some growers on the East Coast and north of the border who are doing very well with Remo and their hydro setups. For you bottled growers, RemoNutrients.com, Urban Remo, give them a follow. Tell them Growcast sent you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy this program. Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to Growcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we get started, please share Growcast. Share Growcast with a friend, with a grower. Spread the show. It's how we grow. Make sure you're subscribed. Give us a good rating and review. We appreciate it here at Growcast. Today we have the great Dr. Coco back on the line. What's up, Dr. Coco?
Hey, Jordan. Great to be back with you.
Yeah, buddy. It's been a minute. We are chugging along here. You are chugging along with the grow challenges, light testing. What's been happening at Coco for Cannabis?
Oh, lots of stuff. Like you said, I've got, we are deep in the plant training grow challenge right now. People are starting to harvest actually, which makes me look at my plants and be like, what's wrong with you plants? Hurry up.
Right. I'm so slow.
But it's been a lot of fun. I think I still got a couple of weeks left. I flipped on October 1st. So we're 8 weeks in here, but
Nice.
they're coming right along. I've got a full, this is my first time downsizing into a 4x2, and I've got a full 4x2 tent. So it's been fun. I'm enjoying seeing everybody's party cup plants growing in the New Year's Grow Challenge. And my party cup plant's actually doing pretty well. I've got my drip system set up for my 9 times a day watering of that
Nice.
to keep it happy.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been doing well. And we're getting all geared up for the New Year's Grow Challenge, which I will get into and talk about some of the strains and stuff hopefully today.
Why don't we just kind of give the overview there? You've separated these groups of people. You always do different groups, a different theme. This time it's like not breeders of strains, but categories of strains, right? Like the fruity flavors or the cookie dessert flavors, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to be really inclusive. So in the past, I've tried to do challenges where we said, like, get this strain from this breeder or whatever. And it just creates such an obstacle for people to be able to join because people already have seeds, or they think that this is just some sort of gimmick to get them to buy a particular, strain and make money off of them or whatever.
This is a way around that for sure, man. It's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, and it's gotten to the point where there's enough people that end up growing sort of exactly the same thing anyways, that if that's what you're interested in doing, you can sort of find that within one of our groups.
Exactly.
So we sat down as a sort of steering committee, and it was actually Berkshire Bud, one of our members one of our steering committee members that came up with this idea of doing it based on like a menu. So we thought about sort of splitting out strains. We wanted to have 7 or 8 different groups. So we come up with the New Year's Grow Challenge menu, and we got the dessert group, the fruit salad group, the color diet group, the global cuisine group, the potluck group, and the misfits.
Nice.
We always have a misfits group. It's going to be a lot of fun. So it'd be.
Well, what have you observed in those groups?
What's that?
What have you observed in those groups? Like, does it show you any trends about the growing industry? Is because look, come on, let's be honest. We've seen this rise of fruity strains and this rise of dessert strains, cookie strains. Those two have to be. If this was like a sample of the grow world, I would wager that those two would be the most populated groups. Is that true? Have you learned anything about the trends?
Well, we don't really know yet, Jordan. So people are going to join. People would choose their groups when they sign up, and that's one of the big things that we were thinking about was how do we not make it so everybody's all in the same group, right? Like, how do you split it out enough? I agree. I think the dessert group is going to be
the largest. It probably should be, right? Theoretically,
or the fruit salad,
right? And I don't want to sound like I'm taking a side on that or like knocking that, but it's a reality of the situation. Over the past few years, those types of strains have absolutely dominated the grow market, and you can still see some of these more old school guys lurking in the shadows and focusing and saying that, this wave is going to end. I'm working on this skunk, and skunk is going to be the next big one I hear tell, or this or that. So I'm interested in these types of trends when it comes to growers' genetics.
I think that there's going to be, and there already is. It's not one dominant trend. I agree that there are sort of a dessert and a fruity trend that's been on the upswing.
Waves of these types of things.
But there's a lot of diversity in the market. And I think one of the trends that we really are seeing is that diversity in the market sort of flourish in a way that, there's enough opportunity for people now to get sort of what they want.
Yeah, we're not close to a monopoly. Yes, there are trends, but we're nowhere near not having variety. That's a really good point.
Right.
Where do you think that?
And with the ability to sort of access strains from different breeders and stuff like that, I think that there's going to be a lot of room. I really think that by its very nature, the market demand is diverse. That people get tired of the same thing over and over again, and they want variety just necessarily in sort of what they're consuming. And their palates differ too. Going in one direction, there's a certain cachet for going in another direction, right? Or for sort of specializing in some other aspect of it. So I really think that there is room for all of that. But I agree, there seems to be some sort of dominant swings.
How do you recommend people choose which genetics to grow? Like if a new grower is talking to you and he says, I don't know which strain to grow, there's so many. What do you say to people like that?
That was sort of that's a tough question. It depends on the person's condition. So a lot of people that I actually encounter are people that are starting to grow because they sort of coincidentally found seeds, right?
Oh, sure.
That's actually a lot of people that sort of show up in the chat room or whatever and asking questions or that write me and ask questions is somebody that got a seed from a bag usually, right? And plants that and starts growing that out. That is decidedly a terrible way to sort of start growing as a beginner.
You've brought that up before. And by the way, my bag seed update, Coco is vindicated. It was definitely a runt. It was definitely misshapen and finicky. I passed it to a listener who is going to take much better care of it and maybe grow it out to a better potential I could, because he knows that mag is good for his condition. I gave it to a home that will give it the proper care it needs, but I ditched that thing, man. That bag seed was whack. You were totally right.
Bag seed, yeah. And that's, we have talked about this before. I think that's one of the things that it becomes a little dead end for a lot of would-be cannabis home growers. Is
you just don't want it to be your first experience.
Do this.
Yeah, the guy I gave it to was very experienced, and like I said, he'll probably get a good harvest but I wasn't gonna.
Right.
The other ones.
Yeah, no, that's fine if you know what you're doing. I just don't like the person that sort of is at home by themselves, gets their their bag seed, gets it going, and then feels like, oh, I mean, I can't do this. These plants are finicky and difficult and runty or whatever else, and gives up because it's a difficult experience.
Right. Good point.
And then I think another common way that people are increasingly getting seeds is through like Instagram dealers and other things that are sometimes somewhat shady and other times somewhat legitimate.
Right.
But yeah, I'm sort of a little bit, unless you know about the specific breeder and sort of know what they're doing. There's just a lot of people out there that are, making S1s out of plants and just making seeds and selling them as something. And if you're not managing the genetics carefully, the way genes recombine mean that the S1 generation may really not be the same or as good or anywhere close to as good as the sort of plant that it was crossed to. So an S1 is when you sort of cross a plant to itself.
Right. The feminized seed is the S1, correct? The selfing process.
Yeah. So you would make a female plant, produce some pollen, use that pollen to pollinate a female flower on that plant. Sometimes you would clone them into two different plants in order to do this first. And taking the pollen from the same plant and pollinating the female flower. That creates a progeny that is not genetically identical to the parent. It is a different sort of recombination of genes. And sometimes that resembles the parent. It sort of depends on the genetics, and it depends on the specific sort of way the genes recombine. But I sort of advise, avoiding those fly-by-night breeders and other things like that.
Get good genetics. Is that what you're saying? Go to someone reputable?
Yeah, go to good genetics. People that sort of know what they're doing, and both of those points. Now, in terms of who actually has good genetics, I'd hedge more on that than on other sort of aspects of this. Although I'm interested to see some of the stuff you've been talking about lately, Jordan.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Rhizo Rich has been in the lab for quite some time. So that's really fun. But, when people, obviously a couple things come to mind when people are asking about genetics. One of the things that I always find that conversation leading to is like learning your terpenes. And this is for big when people ask about what they want to smoke too, right? When they're going to the dispensary or whatever. Learning your terpenes, obviously. And then the one that really kicked me in the butt this time, Dr. Coco, was not taking that flowering time for granted, man. In both directions. I was so impatient, and I was so happy with my 8-week strain this time. That those early flowering cycles are a really important factor. And for all the people who won't go the 12 weeks, they're missing out on a huge category of cannabis. So I wanted to throw those out when it came to deciding which genetics to grow.
I really think that that's one of the advantages of being a craft home grower is we are literally willing to grow strains that don't make sense in a commercial space.
That's a great point.
They're longer flowering or lower yielding. And, as a producer that's growing primarily for yourself, if that's what you're doing as a home grower, I think that opens up a whole different sort of realm and a different way to evaluate sort of your harvest. I think sometimes we do really get too caught up in like yield in terms of thinking about our success as a home grower. But that's a really important point. Commercials grows, it doesn't make sense to grow a 12 or 14 week flowering strain because you could have turned a harvest in 8 weeks and you're, not making any more money off of that.
It's the profitability.
Extra 6 weeks or whatever. But as a home grower, we might be willing to invest that time and that electricity and that sort of effort and money and all of that because we care about having that particular strain that you can only get that way. I'm growing a pretty long flowering strain right now.
What's that? Yeah, tell me about it.
Shining Silver Haze.
Sorry, say that again.
Shining Silver Haze. It's Royal Queen Seeds Super Silver Haze, basically. It's their cut that they bred of it.
Great strain, man. That's a great one. Wolfman grew that strain for a really long time back in Humboldt, and he talks about how he still really enjoys that strain, has a place in his heart.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's thinking back to our New Year's Grow Challenge menu. It would be, if I was in the colored diet strain, the Shining Silver Haze would be, I think, my entrance into the colored diet. So see, that was the other thing we were trying to do with this, Jordan, is it's not just like stuff like fruit and dessert, right? But there's like, how do you create groups that sort of encompass almost everything and create a place for almost any strain?
I like the worldwide because you're talking like Thai, you're talking
Yeah.
Hawaiian this or that. I like that a lot. That actually leads into one of the questions that I wanted to. I don't know if I've brought this up to you, man. We have to have talked about this. I'm just high. What are your thoughts on landrace strains? These people who are hunting land races, I really like the fact they're traveling looking for these strains. The quality of these strains, they look like pretty goofy. But I've smoked some goofy looking weed that was really enjoyable and potent. What are give me your honest opinions on landrace strains?
Well, it's really interesting. I was thinking about this. I'm like, man, it's going to be hard for me to talk about cannabis when this question comes up because
go back to corn.
I'm going to
Dr. Corn, Dr. Corn Co.
Well, this is a lot of what I actually do. I work with farmers who preserve landrace varieties of maize in southern Mexico.
I was right, wasn't I? I nailed it.
And I'm really familiar with sort of the ideas and like sort of how those crop genetic resources are maintained. So landrace varieties are varieties that are grown locally by farmers. They're not wild varieties, but they're varieties that have been sort of cultivated in a local environment. Oftentimes less sort of evidence of domestication, but like domesticated varieties.
Just a long time, right? Stationary.
Yeah, and they're often sort of bred for or selected for various local traits that are suitable for sort of local environs. They are usually far more genetically diverse than modern cultivars. So the landrace varieties of maize, of corn, is where we have basically all of the genetic diversity that exists in the corn genetic universe in these landrace varieties. The varieties that we grow for commercial purposes are genetically identical to each other. So when we run into an issue with like pest resistance or various aspects of yield or climate stress or other things like that might be affecting the sort of modern varieties, which are hugely important to global agriculture. It is those landrace varieties that are maintained by local farmers that are the sort of ultimate source of all of the new genetic resources, all of the new traits or genes that might be potential sort of useful material for farmers elsewhere to use. And so crop genetic resources maintained, landrace varieties maintained by farmers are sort of extremely valuable assets to global agriculture in all sorts of crops. And cannabis should be sort of included in there. And that is what cool. People are doing, essentially mining landrace strains, is what crop researchers do with corn. They come and they collect different landrace varieties, they grow them out, they see what kind of special traits they have, they expose them to specific pathogens, for example, and see if there's any resistances, and they work with that for breeding purposes. And yeah, there are all sorts of ethical issues that raises oftentimes as well, but it's a really important and interesting thing, and it makes the farmers, small scale sort of farmers that do that cultivation of these often not very commercially profitable varieties, incredibly important. And
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, it's one of the things that really is, that happens a lot with different development or macroeconomic changes that affect farmers living in central and southern Mexico and Central America that sort of grow these landrace varieties of maize. As that livelihood becomes more and more difficult, there's fewer farmers potentially doing that. And that is a risk to sort of every farmer that grows corn.
Yeah, and I guess I understood. I guess I understood. It's funny. I guess I understood the like historical preservation part of it and the cannabis culture preservation part of it, but there's a whole like agricultural, scientific kind of preservation that goes with these land races. So that is super important. When it comes to cannabis land races specifically, ones that are available, are they something that you would grow though? I mean, like you take a look, they don't resemble our hybrid, our exotic, sticky, icky strains.
I see. Yeah, this is where I do sort of think that that is something that breeders work with. And I think that's sort of appropriate. I don't know. Most land races of cannabis probably aren't suitable for growing in tents. Most of them, especially, the like the ties and stuff, are huge, gigantic plants, right? So they're difficult to sort of grow.
I put some sand in there. It's part of the terroir. Come on. I put some Home Depot play sand. No, I know exactly what you're saying.
It's fun. If that's what you're into, I'm fine with that. Playing around with plants is a really wonderful hobby. I will say that. I don't think you're really going to cause many people very much harm by playing around with plants. But
would you grow a landrace? Maybe not so much.
Well, it depends on what my goals were.
Right.
I think that's always a really important question to ask yourself and to be aware of while you're doing something. I mean, if your goal is, you don't care how much time or effort or money, and you just want to get some of this, exotic variety that you'd like to try, and this is the way to do it, then that's a perfectly reasonable goal. If that's your goal, have at it. Go for it. Right. But
love it.
I do think it's something that maybe you should be aware of what you're biting off. On the other side of that, breeders that want to try to find new cannabinoids or to try to get, some of the minor cannabinoids to express themselves more. A lot of the genes that may help make that possible, maybe being maintained in landrace varieties of cannabis.
See, that's what excites me, right? There's a secret strain out there that we all need to get introduced to.
Yeah, I don't think that we should think about it necessarily in that way. I mean, that's not how we tend to think about things like landrace maize. It's more that it's so important for us that somebody is growing this because there's genes in there that might be critical for the global food supply. And so if all those farmers go away, essentially that would put global agriculture at risk.
Interesting.
And that's, I think, an interesting angle to think about it with cannabis as well. There is some homogenization that sort of occurs, I think, with people sharing and crossing and doing all of this stuff. So having groups of farmers that are maintaining these sort of isolated populations of landrace varieties is potentially an important asset for the future of cannabis breeding.
That's interesting stuff, man. Yeah, I love it. And I love the, again, geographical, historical, and then as you put it, like the much more important implications long term. So I'm glad I was able to at least bridge cannabis with corn somewhat there. I don't think I fell too deep into the corn universe, but you can see sort of how there's some parallels there. And it's just something I've thought much more about. We'll be right back with Dr. Coco, but before that, ACinfinity.com, now selling tents. You got to check out the tents at ACinfinity.com. GrowCast15 is the code to save 15% on the world's best inline fans for growing, plus new high-quality, sturdy, durable tents. ACinfinity.com. Check out the Cloudline series, the S series and the T series. Both are amazing. The S series has a 10-speed fan controller, and the T series has a new controller on the way. Available in some places, I understand. Ooh, AC Infinity, they make the best, and now they also make tents. Another option for a grow tent. You got to check out what they look like, the Cloud Lab series. They sure look slick. ACinfinity.com, GrowCast15 is the code. Save 15%, everyone. We love helping you save money. All right, everyone, let's get back to Dr. Cocos. What are you growing right now other than what you shared, and what are you excited about? Any genetics that you're drooling over and want to get your hands on and haven't yet?
I'm wondering what I should grow in the New Year's Grow Challenge. I'm wondering which one of these groups I'm going to be sort of a part of. And I got some options. I've been thinking about doing the Global Cuisine group. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of options, but that one I wouldn't grow Landrace. I would grow something like, I really like the New England rock candy that I grew. I have a Power Africa that I've enjoyed and I've threatened to grow again.
What's that lineage? Power Africa? That sounds awesome.
Oh God, it's been years since I grew it. It's one of these strains, I believe, that everybody thinks is sativa because of its sort of growth characteristics, but it's not, I believe.
Interesting.
And it was supposed to be a fast flowering strain. This is the part that I remember from growing it myself, but it was supposed to be a fast flowering strain and it took forever. Produced really bizarre colas, really interesting photograph, sort of open bud structures. It big kind of buds at the top with really low leaf ratio, but kind of a bizarre structure. It looked weird. It was an interesting one to grow out. It took forever to mature and finish. And
Skunk
then
Haze X Durban Poison.
Okay, you looked it up.
Yeah, man. This looks good. 15 to 23% average THC levels, and I gotta tell you, Dr. Coco, some of the most enjoyable strains I've ever fall in that 16 to 19% range. I think that people are way too concerned with getting into the 20s.
I agree.
This sounds great,
and it sort of depends on the rest of the profile, I would argue.
Absolutely.
But I take a 16 with that sort of excellent terpene profile.
Terps off the chain, or some CBD to balance it out.
Yeah, then I would sort of just something that's just supposed to be pure blasted THC.
Wow, spicy. The aroma is earthy and herbal in nature. This sounds great. Power Africa. I've never heard of this strain. It's highly rated too.
There's a bunch of those. So think about, I think that's going to be a fun group. And I think that if you're growing a strain, I've got, the New England rock candy, that could theoretically be a dessert, right? Like a candy strain. But I would say if you're growing that, if it's got a place name like that, to join the Global Cuisine group, because I do think that the dessert group is going to be one of the more popular ones. Right now I'm growing blueberry too, which just sort of a classic blueberry strain. I really like the way it looks in my tent right now. Only having 2 plants in I have 2 plants plus the party cup plant, but basically 2 plants are taking up the bulk of the space, right?
Nice.
And it's got, it's 4 square feet for just the one blueberry plant. Under plenty of light, and it's fun to see those buds develop up, man. I got to start worrying about bud rot here as we get into the last couple of weeks of this, because they're doing really well. So I like I usually like the classics like that too. The strains that became sort of popular and classic because they were good.
It's interesting. We put up a little survey in our member chat, and it's just getting started. It's only a couple of hours old, but we have 9 votes, 10 votes, and the poll says you can only experience one flavor profile for the rest of your life. which do you choose? And they only let me pick 10. So the choices were tropical fruit, citrus fruit, other fruit, skunk slash roadkill, gas slash fuel, cushy slash bitter, sweet desserts, cakes and cookies, piney, sour, or other. And gas and fuel is leading the way right now. That might be the one that's been it's just hung around for so long. Like when I was growing in Humboldt County, everyone wanted OG, right? And OG has that kind of gassy smell. And then out east, they have the diesel, the New York sour diesel. In the hip hop community, lots of talk about gas, lots of talk about diesel. I think maybe that's the one that's you talk about, like, there are these trends, but there are also A, variety, and then B, I think these constants that people just love. So gas and fuel leading the way. Interesting.
That is interesting. I think
Small sample size.
whole flavor profile needs a marketing department, because they have a marketing problem. I mean, I think being called like gas and diesel is unattractive to a large segment of growers and smokers.
I agree because I think that's one of the reasons cakes and cookies took over, is because they put a delicious cookie on the front, and you're like, oh, that cookie looks delicious, and then you smoke the weed, and then you're like, oh, I'm still hungry for cookies.
The newbie cannabis consumer that goes in, like, diesel doesn't sound pleasant, but like wedding cake does.
Oh my God, you nailed it, Dr. Coco.
No, yeah, I totally believe that that's an issue, and nobody's out there sort of running a marketing campaign for the diesel and the fuel strains and everything, right? So yeah, they find popularity because they're good in communities where they're able, or where it's sort of almost an allure to look past that. But I like the fuel varieties. I haven't grown one in a while. That's an interesting thought to sort of get into. And looking at this, there's plenty of those that have sort of global names. They're New York diesel, so you could
New York.
Throw that out in the global cuisine group.
Those guys take their diesel seriously out there. Like if you hand them diesel, they'll be like, "This isn't New York diesel." I can just tell from across the room. They can tell. They take their diesel very seriously on the East Coast.
Getting to that list, man, I want to say piney, but I really do think that I would get tired of it. So it's hard to do it.
Oh, damn. Interesting. No one has voted pine. Yeah, like I said, not many votes yet, but you're going piney. I like that choice. That's a noble choice.
I love the pine strains.
Me too,
you got a good piney strain. Those are the strains that, give me some of the most pleasant highs, right? Sort of some of the most contemplative, some of the most sort of enjoyable head highs.
You know what I'm going to say, right? Coffee Kush. That's what's up. No, I don't know if that would be the one. I don't know if that's the one I would choose, but that's definitely up there.
Coffee Kush, right? So that's we got that. Grow. Oh man.
Dude,
that'd be an interesting one. I haven't grown a coffee flavored strain, Jordan. So
they're great, man. It's a whole experience. The Katura by Cultivated Choice. I know I've been talking it up a lot, but I mean it. It's just so fucking special. It's such a great flavor profile to go with the rest of the cannabis terpenes.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah. And then I got to decide. I mean, if I'm thinking about what I'm going to personally grow, I've got like 10 different strains that I could grow that would fit in one of these categories. I haven't bought seeds in a while though. And I mean, I haven't had to.
What do you mean? Because you've been gifted seeds sort of thing?
Well, also because for a while I bought like lots of seeds.
Okay, so you had a problem in the past, like many of my listeners. You have the same problem that many of my listeners have.
As I've heard many a grower before me say that buying seeds and growing seeds are two different hobbies.
Yeah, that's so true, man. They're like Pokemon trading cards.
Well, it's just like, I mean, you go to one of the seed brokers or one of the breeders and you look at the pictures and you're reading the descriptions and you're like, I want that. Okay. Well, now I'm going to make an order. So I might as well get, several other things. And then
they do a good job of that, man.
Freebies with it or whatever. Of different stuff.
They're 10 packs or 12 packs. They have all sorts of cool stuff. That was actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do custom art for hopefully all of our strains, as many of our strains as I can, because, I think the art really is important, and it sets you up for the whole experience of what you want the strain to look like before they even crack the package. So obviously, Rhizo Rich is nailing down the dankness side, but I'm the one who's naming these things and coming up with the art, and that is important, man. That's a good point, because they are a bit like trading cards. Like sometimes you'll buy them knowing that you're probably never going to get around to growing it, but you buy it anyways because you want it.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so then I eventually forced myself to stop buying them at all, and like
once you're stocked up, you have to have a bit of
an
intervention moment.
Yeah, exactly. And the first few challenges that we were doing, like I was saying at the top, we were like working with the seed bank or whatever and getting like, okay, we're all going to grow this. And I was always getting new seeds every time, even though I'd get way more seeds than I could grow. And then I'd get way more seeds that I could grow 3 months later when we did the next challenge. So,
I know what you mean, man.
Yeah, I just got to the point where I was like, no, I got to stop.
Stocked up. Let's see here. What else did I want to cover? How's the light testing going? I know, like we were saying with the breeder features, I got a lot of packs coming in and they kind of overflow. You had the same thing where there were lights all over your house. You lighting your living room with a fucking Viper Spectra or something?
That micro fixture my wife thought was suitable to hang up in the kitchen is sort of the
damn. They do look nice, man. Kitchen. Limited time promo code GROWCAST. Shane, we like Shane a lot. The wife liked that. She liked the aesthetic. Yeah, dude. And if your listeners are thinking about getting Micro's light with your code, I could certainly throw my weight behind such a decision. I tested so far both of the models he's released so far of the full spectrum and the plus red version. Really, really cool lights. I just tested the full spectrum version over the weekend. And I was curious, he's got it. One of the things about the micro fixture is that it's sort of designed to run at only 6 inches above the canopy. Oh, damn.
Which, thinking about it, I was like, that's going to be really hard to sort of maintain, right? Like my plants can grow 4 inches in a day. So how am I going to sort of set it to 6 inches? They're going to grow right into the light. So I ran a test with it up at 10 inches and it barely drops off in efficiency.
Whoa, damn.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but really, since the light is so well distributed already, it doesn't drop off much at all. Like
that's
2% loss of usable ppf, raising it up like that. So you can run it at 10 inches and sort of let the plants grow into where they're 6 inches away.
That's where a lot of people struggle, though, that light height. I was just talking to someone in the chat today about how, like, he's kind of a new grower, and one thing he really struggles with is like light intensity, light height. And I think these LEDs are a little bit more forgiving than than when your HID gets a little too close. It'll fuck your shit up.
Well, it's not only that they're more forgiving than when you get too close, which it certainly is. The other difference is, since they distribute the light better, you lose less as you raise it. You sort of lose less in reflective losses because the lights. Yeah, it's already distributed across the canopy. So, there's not. I think the message I'd like to send is you don't have to run it at sort of the maximum height, or the minimum height, right? You usually can be with a LED bar fixture with a quantum board. You can be several inches higher without really suffering mesurable losses in net yield at all.
That's really good to know.
Especially when the plants are growing vigorously. You don't have to play it too cute and be in there like raising the lights 3 times a day or something to make sure that you're keeping it totally dialed in. And it actually also takes a little bit of the pressure off of having to maintain such a perfectly even canopy. With a HID sort of single point light source like that, there's much more of an incentive to create like a perfectly even canopy that you don't even you're not casting shadows or whatever also across that space.
Yeah, man. I'm all about my grows are in the mail. I mean, listen, I've said it on the show before. You can grow great weed with a lot of different lights. There's just so many price points, and my grow, you get a really great fixture for a low cost and the limited time 5%
Yeah.
off with GrowCast. So grab one if you guys want before the code's up in like 2.5, 3
Yeah,
weeks.
I mean, his fixture, there's other fixtures. So I tested the one for the 4x2 tent. And I would say what it does, it gives high density light everywhere for the lowest power draw of any fixture that's out there, really. I mean, that's Migro's, the Ray's claim to fame. There are other fixtures that have higher density light, but
Sure.
the increase in that density sort of between there isn't going to get you much of anything, and you have to burn a lot more electricity to get it.
Man, there's just so much out there. It's like, that's why I don't like when people get so defensive over their brand of anything, really, but especially lights, because it's like, the person who says like, oh, that light, it's overpriced. It's like, well, you don't know. If I had all the money, I'd be getting all the baller stuff too. Or the person who's like, oh, that light is shit because it's not the absolute best. It's like, well, you spent $1,400 on your light, man. Of course it's going to perform a little bit better. Like,
well,
I think it's
there
just
are
about
some
understanding.
lights that are, I mean, is some quality and there is some crap out there, right? But yeah, I agree.
It's one thing if the light doesn't perform.
There's a lot of advantages to different things.
upcharged.
And people often ask me like, what would be the best light? And again, like I was saying earlier, it depends on your goals.
Totally.
The latest video I just dropped is for the Grower's Choice ROI E720, which is a big light for a 5x5 grow space.
And more of those, yeah. More and more of those I see online.
It's an awesome fixture.
Oh,
it's huge. It puts out a ton of light, more light, probably I think than many other fixture in its class designed for a 5x5 light or 5x5 space. And but it's not quite as high efficiency as like the Photon Tech light that I evaluated. The Photon Tech light draws like 100 watts less. So it puts out less light.
Totally.
But it's more efficient.
It just all depends. And would you agree that you would be able to grow great cannabis with either of those lights? So it's like,
oh, absolutely. So it just depends. Like, are you trying to put absolutely as much light as you possibly can? Is that more important, or is efficiency more important? Because and it's tough to tell every grower that there's one right answer to that question. I think different growers may have different answers to that question.
That's right, man. I think that they want to. Sometimes they want to be the one with the best light, and that's understandable. But honestly, every good consultant I've talked to has the same answer that you do when someone says, "What's the best light?" It depends, man. And even, Riser Rich, one of the best. I mean, he's like, he grows the best weed that I fucking smoke, and he's grown under HID. So it's like, you just do what you do. You do what works for your space. You do what makes you happy, and no need to lash out at others, I feel. But however. Not. I do like the objective testing that you do, because that's when we get to see the numbers and we get to geek out and make a more informed decision. So God bless and Godspeed.
Well, check out that latest, the Grower's Choice video. I get into some of these topics that we were just talking about. I do 2 tests with it at 2 different hanging heights. And I sort of look exactly at that issue of like, how much light do you lose when you raise the light up? And what does that really mean about where you would want to hang the light? Because you also improve the distribution as you raise the light. So, a lot of growers probably try to run their lights closer than is optimal, even though they can get away with it, even though it's not like, causing photo inhibition in their plants or bud bleaching or other things. They're still probably closer than would be sort of maximize their gain.
I love it. I love takes like that, man.
Yeah. So I try to get into that. I try to show some of the physics behind it. So hopefully, even if you're not sort of using that fixture, you can understand more about how light works and what changes when you make sort of various changes in your own setup.
That's cool, man. I love when you come on and you say these little things that are going to make us rethink when we go into our garden later. Just like rethink the little things there. I do appreciate that.
Absolutely. Cool. Wonderful, Jordan.
Well, yeah, that's a good place to wrap it up. What do we got? New Year's Grow Challenge, obviously. Everybody go check it out. CocoForCannabis.com.
That's
There's giveaways going down.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's CocoForCannabis.com/challenge. I think we haven't told people that enough yet. So yeah, make sure you guys get over there, sign up for the New Year's Grow Challenge, free for everybody. You can, join one of these groups we've been talking about, grow any kind of, really pretty much any kind of cannabis grant you'd want to, but you'll find other growers growing similar things in the groups. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Starts on New Year's.
Cool, man. And we appreciate you chipping in for the last Grow Past giveaway. A lucky member was able to contact Dr. Coco, get a little consultation, contact Riza Rich, get a little consultation. We got him hooked on Purity Coffee, of course. We're giving away lots and lots of prizes, which reminds me, I would like to give away a year of GrowCast membership headed into 2021, our brand new revamped membership for the next challenge giveaway for Coco for Cannabis.
Yes, we need to talk about that. Thank you, Jordan.
Sure,
so we'll give away, this is one more reason to sign up for the New Year's Grow Challenge. I'm excited to see what you guys are doing with the revamped GrowCast membership. And you're going to roll that out in January.
Yeah, it's absolutely right, man.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. We're going to give away a 1-year membership. And all you got to do to be eligible for that is sign up for the New Year's Grow Challenge and start your journal on January 1st. We're going to have a big drawing there for the GrowCast membership. I'll have,
what else you got? Don't you have a couple? Do you have a light up there?
Yeah, I have. I've got a Mars FC 3000 nice. Committed to that giveaway, which is a cool light I evaluated last month. That's really good efficiency light for a 3x3 tent.
Nothing wrong with a free light, man.
Really cool fixture there. And, I'm going to give away some other light fixture there on January 1st too. Like you were saying, I've got a hallway full of
lights. You plug them in, you
lights.
test them once, and then they go back in the box, man. Some of those are going to be good prizes. So that's cool. You're giving those away.
Oh yeah. I run them for a total of 3 or 4 hours and then pack them back up again. And you get to get a famous light, it's the light in the
good
video.
Point. Exactly. It's already starred in a film.
The movie star.
Exactly right. Hey, Coco, I got to apologize too, because I haven't been in Coco for Cannabis. I love visiting your community and posting and stuff. Obviously, this year's been really tough, and I've been working double shift. Cool.
You'll be around starting in the New Year's Grow Challenge, I'm sure. Our community's growing every day. We get, a number of new users every day signing up. Come and check out our chat room. Check out our grow challenges. You can read through the journals and the current Plant Training Grow Challenge and check out, all that community stuff, which is a lot of fun. In addition, of course, to the Grow Light Guide and the product guide and all of our articles and tutorials and guides and all the rest of that. So I forgive you, Jordan. No worries. You're a wonderful supporter of what we do, and I always try to support GrowCast as well. I think it's a great collaboration.
Absolutely, everybody. Thank you for tuning into this episode of GrowCast with the great Dr. Coco. We're going to wrap it up. Is that motorcycles? There's like a motorcycle race going on in my backyard. I got to run. I got to see what the ruckus is. This is Dr. Coco and Jordan River signing off, saying be safe out there and grow smarter.
Grower love, everyone.
That's our show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. Subscribe to GrowCast. Before we wrap it up, shout out to Danny Danko and his book Cannabis, A Beginner's Guide to Growing Marijuana, my number one pick for people just getting started for growing. It's what I recommend. growcastpodcast.com/Danko brings you right to the book, and Bloom members let us know before you buy. You get your copy signed. Cannabis, A Beginner's Guide to Growing Marijuana by our friend Danny Danko. Thank you all. Make sure to hit growcastpodcast.com/action. And there you can find everything we're doing, as well as a link to the Slack channel where we're all hanging out. Great things coming January 1st. Big changes, membership changes, GrowCast Seed Co. I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned, okay? We'll see you next time on GrowCast.